بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Beloved brothers and sisters, Alhamdulillah, we continue our fiqh lessons this evening and we are still in the chapter of Salah. We're going to a new section. This evening, inshallah, we'll go into the section of Adhan and Iqamah. Before we enter that section, I'll respond to a question that came in, inshallah. Let's get into that question. So the person asks the following question. If a man performs Salah with a t-shirt and during that Salah, that t-shirt lifts when that man is in ruku' and in sujood, showing the lower back, must the salah be repeated? So to understand this, as I look at the question, a man was in salah and when he went into ruku', his lower back was then shown, and also sujood. Should that salah be repeated? So to respond to this, yes. Fundamentally, a condition of the salah has now been broken, and that was that awrah was exposed. And because awrah was exposed, the salah is invalidated. Not the rak'ah, but the salah in its entirety. So the salah should be repeated. There is a difference of opinion regarding the man who in his salah realizes that his t-shirt went up. So if a man is wearing a t-shirt and he goes into ruku' and he can feel the t-shirt lifted, and in his salah he immediately pulls it down, there's a difference of opinion amongst the ulama whether that salah must be repeated. And the difference lies in the amount of time that the awrah was exposed. But the majority of scholars say, even if it was a moment, the awrah was shown and the salah is invalidated. There are some ulama who say that if it occurred in a single rak'ah and it wasn't longer than a second, so the man goes into ruku' and as he goes in, he immediately covers it, and that doesn't repeat itself in that salah, there is a minority opinion that the man can repeat that rak'ah because the rak'ah was invalidated. But the majority opinion is that the entire salah must be repeated. Okay, we go into our section this evening and we only have 2 points, inshallah, for this evening. We're going into the area of adhan and iqamah. And I find that this is an area which many people are not familiar with. It's important to understand the laws of adhan and iqamah, especially if you perform some of your salawat away from a masjid or away from a jama'ah, a congregation. So the first ruling we must acknowledge is that adhan and iqamah are both sunnah. The adhan and iqamah are both sunnah for the fard salah. Okay? Whether you are performing your salah on your own or performing it as a second jama'ah of salah. So sometimes you are traveling on the garden route and you get to a masjid, and maybe you don't even know if that masjid, perhaps it's a very small town, musalla, and you get there and you're not even sure if the adhan went off in that area. You never heard it, you just got there, and now you might query, do I make adhan? Was there an adhan? There's no caretaker to tell me if an adhan went off. What do you do? So firstly, we know that it is sunnah to make it. Both adhan and iqamah. If adhan and iqamah were not made, it does not affect the salah. Secondly, with regards to adhan and iqamah, another important point, the adhan does not signal the entry of the waqt. And so this often happens in Ramadan. People wait for the adhan to break their fast, maghrib time, because they deduce that the adhan sort of allows the waqt to enter. No, it's the other way around. the waqt of salah enters, and at that time it is legislated for the adhan to be made. So a common scenario is also the dhuhr waqt and the asr waqt. If we look at many of the masajid in our city, including Masjid Taqwa, the waqt of salah enters conventionally quite a number of minutes prior to the adhan actually being made at that masjid. And so some people question, okay, if they enter a masjid, right? Let's say you come to Masjid Taqwa for Dhuhr Salah, and the Dhuhr Adhan is at 1:45. And there are times when the waqt of Dhuhr enters past 12 already. So you enter a masjid, the Adhan had not been made, and now you ask yourself, is it permitted for you to make the sunnahs that would be made prior to Dhuhr? What do you think, Hajis brothers? If you enter a masjid, the adhan never went off, but the waqt had entered. Can you make the sunnahs of dhuhr after your tahiyatul masjid? Yes, you can. Everyone is nodding yes, because the waqt had entered. So the waqt needs to enter for that salah to be in. The adhan is a calling to people to tell them the waqt has entered. And because of convenience sake in our city, in many other cities, the adhan is made at a time which is of course convenient for that locality and within the waqt. The same goes for Asr. Asr enters at many masajid much earlier than the adhan time, particularly Masjid Taqwa as well. The Asr waqt enters quite earlier. So once the waqt enters, that salah is upon you, and you don't need the adhan to signal the entry of the waqt. Now we look at the scenario. I gave the example that you went to a place and now you want to know, do I make adhan? If you are going to a masjid where they make adhan according to a schedule, and you get there afterwards, you won't repeat an adhan for that locality. If you know you arrive maybe at a place and they say here adhan is made at this time, you won't repeat adhan. Adhan would not be repeated in a location where adhan had already been made. Now let's say you go to Skunis. There's no masjid there. Can adhan be made at a beach where there's a majority Muslim audience? Yes. Even if there's no masjid. Because the purpose of the adhan is to tell everyone the waqt has entered. At wedding receptions, maybe we change it to wajib because people must be reminded of salah. So maybe at a wedding reception, to signal that the waqt had entered and people are not just sitting and breaking the laws, you make adhan so that the entire congregation knows the waqt has now entered. Now when it comes to iqama can generally be repeated for a congregation. If you go to a masjid and they've made salah, you can make iqama prior to and they've completed, you can make iqama. It is permitted for you to recite the iqama before salah. And iqama can also be made adhan can be made in your home if no adhan is heard in your area. Or you didn't hear it on the radio or the alarm, you never heard an adhan can be made then in your home to signal to everyone the waqt has entered. If you can hear an adhan outside, you can hear mashallah a masjid close to you, then you won't make adhan because then it's been heard. But an iqama can be repeated. And an iqama must generally be made by a man. But we'll talk about who can do that in the next lesson, inshallah. And then I'll just mention also, a lady can make iqama only if it's ladies who will hear it. So if let's say a wife, you in your house, and your husband is nearby, you shouldn't make your iqama so that he can hear it, because that's not the etiquette of iqama. So a lady it is sunnah for the lady to make iqama for her salah, provided that there aren't men who are going to hear it, or even boys, because the wrong understanding should not develop. And then I close, inshallah, that when we look at the merit of the entire salah, from adhan to the leading of salah, the ulama write that to make adhan in reality is considered more meritorious than the leading of salah. And that is why you find at the harams, it's so interesting that at the harams, the muaddins, the bilals, are individuals who are like mashaikh, who hold doctorates in Islamic studies, and they're making adhan. And there's a place also where they must stand. It's a very systematic process. So making adhan holds great, great reward. And we must, of course, want to make adhan. It should be something. Every home, every male should know how to make adhan and iqama. It's not meant for the bilals only at a masjid. Every male should know, because you will be in a gathering where iqama needs to be made and the imam turns around, who can make iqama? Then they look at who's the eldest here. Okay. Everyone should have the capacity, inshallah. So we close this evening. Adhan and iqama are sunnah. Adhan does not have to be repeated if it had been made already in a location, and iqama can be made after, made again before another jama'ah, inshallah. We also, I'll close just with that. If you are performing qasr salah, jam salah, you are a traveler and you are going to join, you can have one adhan. Let's say you're on the road and you get to a place, family stops on the road, and you're going to make, you can have one adhan for that salah, and you don't need another adhan. You won't make another adhan for the next salah. You just make iqama. So you make adhan, you make dhuhr, 2 rak'ahs, rak'atain, and then you won't make sunnahs. You then make iqama for your asr salah that you are bringing earlier. Okay? Inshallah. Wa sallallahu wa sallam alayhi walhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Question, Mark.
Is it preferable for somebody that is reading Quran to stop reading and listen to Quran? And if so, why is it that he should stop reading?
So the question is, when the adhan is being made, is it preferable, and you are perhaps reading Quran, is it preferable to stop reading the Quran, or should one continue? This is based on the locality of the adhan. So if you are in a masjid and the adhan is being made there, and this is also the general opinion, you must stop your recitation to respond to the adhan. That is in accordance with the sunnah. So, of course, as the muaddin recites, we are meant to repeat. We must respond to the muaddin. So it is etiquette, and as we see this in Masjid Nabawi as well, and Masjid Haram, Makkah, that when the adhan is being made, all the mashaikh that are teaching, they close their books and they pause, because they don't want the jama'ah to be asking questions, to be doing something else, whilst the adhan is being made. And then, of course, the etiquette is to respond to it. So to come to the recitation of the Quran, that in that moment is not fard. So the only thing which would override the adhan is something which is fard. So you won't break a salah. It's fard to complete it. You won't break a salah to respond to adhan. But Quran, the etiquette would be that you close it. If you are talking, you stop talking. If you are teaching, you pause your teaching and you respond to the adhan, make dua after adhan, and then you can continue the action, inshallah. Yes.
Someone makes salah, for example, it's late before the work. Now someone is reciting Quran loudly, so the person is supposed to silent, soften, but the person maybe is salah loudly.
Okay, good question. So the question is that you enter the masjid and you need to perform salah, and there is someone reciting Quran in the masjid. So and the person is reciting it loudly, as I understand your question. Your question is that person allowed to recite loudly? Okay, so when you are, the etiquette of being in a masjid is your ibadah may not impose on another person's ibadah, because it's a communal space, a place of jama'ah. So if you go to a masjid, if there's no one else in the masjid, then you can raise your recitation of the Quran so that someone next to you can hear. If you are reciting so that the person next to you can hear, but there isn't someone, and someone then enters, it is not permitted for you to keep your recitation aloud. The only except, because of course you can then interfere with someone who has to perform salah. The only exception to this is if the masjid has allocated like a qari of sort. And a qari can't be appointed during a time of fard salah. So if a masjid has appointed a qari that is having a program, the etiquette is that the musallis should be aware that that program is going to take place. But of course, the masjid is also not allowed to have a continuous recitation before each waqt of salah or throughout the time, because there must be moments of silence. So to respond to your question, if you are reading Quran in the masjid loudly, that someone next to you can hear, and you see someone enter, you must lower it, because your recitation must not disturb the person who has performed salah. In the same way that in salah, your recitation can't disturb the person right next to you, because then it affects the ibadah. Inshallah. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Shukran.